Yo there, folks. Dr. Benson here in C-136, Camden High School. Just giving a recap from last week. I'm sorry for the delay, but it was a really long week. And Friday, I was just gassed. I was just tired. So here we are. Getting into what we did last week for senior seminar for U.S. History 2 and for Rap and Urban America. Real quick, we were getting into we were finishing up students how to break down their pay stub, the difference between deductions and taxation, how taxes are mandatory whether you want to pay taxes or not is going to come out. Whereas deductions is a result of maybe our actions, things we did, things we owe, the debts we owe that are coming out through like wage garnishment, things like this. Or decisions we make in terms of like saving for college or saving for our retirement. Those are things that are sort of optional. So understanding the difference between taxation that coming out of your paycheck and deductions. And I showed them an example of a sample paycheck to show exactly what it looks like, your difference between your gross and your net. And again, some folks who are working have experience in actually understanding what takes place between the time, the math that you've done, the time you think you're going to get a certain wage, a certain amount, and actually what's the result, what you actually net. So some folks, it's the first time never actually seeing a paycheck. It was like, oh, taxes really beat your check up. Yes, they do. But then we got into actually understanding actually what taxes pay for. All types of things that are around us that seem free really are paid for by all of us paying our fair share through taxation. And then folks began to sort of feel a little bit differently and actually understand how things they can sort of, look and see and have a relationship with in terms of like governmental, services like school, like public education, that are paid for by tax dollars. So that sort of changed their perspective on taxation, actually what they feel when they see their checks sort of decrease because of taxation, but also understanding the deductions. This week, we're getting into options after high school. As we begin to approach or march toward graduation, I told them over and over again, is that graduation in some ways is a celebration, but at the same time, it's society or our school system saying, you're done here. Now it's time for you to deal with the world, sort of on your own as a more independent adult. As a lot of folks either are approaching being the age of 18 or are 18 already. So then we began discussing, college. We'll get into discussing college more in depth. And then we'll discuss trade school, and then we'll discuss military. What I told them over and over again is that there's options for you to pursue. But what can't happen is you do nothing. That can't happen. Why? Because we understand occupational reality, economic reality around us demands that we have to continue our education in some capacity. And before they actually make a determination one way or the other, college, trade school, or military, they have to understand the pros and cons of each. And we go over that sort of stuff. We'll go over this stuff really, really thoroughly. And again, I have my bias. I'm all for everybody going to college because I know everybody can go, everybody can thrive, everybody can do well. But sort of navigating it can get kind of dicey and sort of confusing. So we're going to spend some time actually getting into the pros and cons of each of those things. We already discussed college, a 4-year and a 2-year. The Camden County we did that stuff today. We'll get into trade school on Thursday. And that's wrapping up the senior seminar stuff because this is all about, again, preparing them for life after high school, which really, really is important. And they're beginning to lock and actually realize it's becoming real to them that their time in high school, time in this building is limited. Whereas before they have a different level of urgency as seniors compared to what they did as freshmen. So they're starting to understand it. In U.S. History 2, we got into the Spanish-American War. We continue that. Post-Reconstruction, imperialism, and expanded opportunities for women over the course of the last couple of days. Namely, how the United States went to war with Spain in Cuba over false pretenses. The idea that Spain attacked the USS Maine in 1898 when it was just an explosion. It was a storage error. But it's not the first time in United States history. Sorry, it was not the last time in United States history that we went to war over a lie. I asked you, and you guys, can you name some examples? And somebody said, yes. What about going to war in Iraq, or the myth of weapons of mass destruction? And I said, that's a perfect example. It's not the first time that we go to war over something that's not true. And then we talked about, the different things that might have caused it and what the result was. One thing that was really, really interesting that we sort of dug into is how the territory now of Puerto Rico became a U.S. territory as a result of all this. I explained to them like, yo, understand a lot of European nations made it a business, made it their priority to go and colonize other parts of the globe. And again, we talked about it before. How do we know who colonized where? Simply look at the language we speak. The language we speak will determine a lot about, or goes a really far way in actually showing what areas of what countries in Europe went to colonize other areas where. All right. So part of the reason why we speak Spanish is spoken so widely in the Western Hemisphere, why English is spoken so widely in the Western Hemisphere, is because England and Spain made it a priority to colonize, which means take over and kill and subjugate native people. Um, I asked, yo, what's the most common language in Brazil? Some folks said Spanish. Like, no, it's not Spanish, it's Portuguese. And what that tell you? Some folks said Portuguese went and colonized the area that we understand as Brazil, and that's exactly correct. And then we got into expanding opportunities for women with the passage of the 18th Amendment and the 19th Amendment, at the one time banning the sale of alcohol and giving women the legal right to vote, first time in 1920. So we began to actually recognize how laws were passed and progressively leading to more social progress and more rights for all people who aren't necessarily only white males. But then I also pointed out to them there is some talk about repealing the 19th Amendment and taking away the right for women to vote, which is consistent to actually what this current, political milieu, specifically on the federal level, is about turning back folks' civil rights and leaving it only into the hands of a very certain specific few, namely white males. So we're connecting what was going on in the early 1900s to what's going on right now. And we'll continue to work on that over the course of the week. And then most interesting in rap and urban America, we got into students were still continuing their analysis of 80s rap and having to fill out this form. I'll show you guys right here. This form right here on song information, you can't really see, it's kind of blurry. Where I'm asking a question, when was the rap written? What was the song about? How we know they got to include two quotes. Tell me about the rapper who performed it, give a little bit of biographical information. What was the rap strength and weaknesses? Understand a lot of these kids obviously were born really, really within the last 18 years. So probably within around 2007 or somewhere thereabouts. So this 80s rap is something that's really something even many of them have never heard of before. So them actually hearing a brand of rap they're not accustomed to, I want to know what they thought their strength, the song's strength and the weaknesses were. Also, a question like this, we're going to get into the language. All right. How many times were the N-words used in these songs? How many times were profanities used in these songs? How many times was violence referenced? How many times were the sexually charged lyrics? And how many times was youthful activities referenced? And what they do is they have to fill out this form for that specific song. So you have an understanding of actually what that song is about and the sort of, content, that was expressed on the course of that song. They did that for the 80s last week. And now this week they're getting the 90s. Like for instance, for at random same situation. Let's take a look. For card number 12, they got Outcast, West Savannah, J. Rue the Damager, Come Clean, KRS-One and Mad Lion, Shoot to Kill, Blase, Danger. For card number 10, Gangstar, Mass Appeal, Notorious Big, I Got a Story to Tell, Jizza, Shadowboxing, Raekwon, Incarcerated Scarfaces. So they don't know what cards they're going to have. I tell them to go pick. I lay these cards out, and they pick whatever they pick. They have to listen to multiple times before they start filling out this form. They'll fill out the form, and then they'll move from that song to the next one. And what you're starting to see is that what I saw in the forms I saw that they've done already is that through the 80s, there's very little to none to no references to the N word, to the B word, or violence in those songs, except for the message. All right. And that was more of sort of a didactic song trying to teach kids like, yo, it's crazy out here, like don't do really crazy things that will get you jammed up. But outside of that, there's very little reference to to any of the types of things that have become more and more common that folks are consuming right now. And the 90s is when they start to actually see a ratcheting up of these types of languages. All right, and then we'll get into this right here. How Dr. Dre and hip hop helped end the crack era, right? Another perspective on the music and um you know and drugs and things like this. And then another reading, Trap Stars, Rap Stars, and Fiends: How Crack Epidemic Reshaped Hip Hop Subject Matter. So we are not, like I said before, we're not only just listening to music, but we're all going to be applying some academic principles or academic approaches and lenses to the music we're listening to, alongside the music we listen to. A lesson we just had is urban. Lesson we just had recently is in urban demography, is actually understanding why our cities demographically look the way that it does. So why our cities overwhelmingly where we live at, Black and Latino, and we have essentially white folks gone over the course of these last 50 years. They have a better understanding of actually how this came to be through politics, not through anybody's refusal to quote unquote do right or abide by society's norms. So I'm being said, so it's sort of a recent rundown of what we've done in the last couple of days, and we're getting a lot of things done. Unfortunately, I can't give you good news about the Eagles because we just lost on Sunday, and unfortunately, our boys just lost here on Saturday as well. But hopefully, everybody bounces back. I think our boys here at Canada High have a game on Thursday, and the Eagles have a game on Thursday night against the Giants. Hopefully, can bounce back. But what is most important is how everybody here is pushing to just be better and to learn more. And that's ultimately what we're here for. Um, Now, this is my first time teaching this rap in urban America class, which is the course that I designed. And I did have a lot of help. Um, and there's some things I would do differently right now, but again, it's sort of like growing pains. But I think we're getting a lot of stuff from it, and the kids are starting to open up to the differences they're hearing in the music that we grew up on. I'm 45 years old, that I grew up on, versus the music they're consuming and pounding in their heads, of their own volition. And you're starting to hear some students actually say, "Well, I listen to that, but I don't really listen to that all the time." And what they're talking right now is kind of crazy compared to what we came up with. And that's kind of the point. Now we're going to get into why and what the ramifications of this sort of content that folks are listening to might be. But that's that. That's where we're stopping right here today. We got some more learning to do, and we will continue to do it. But thank you all for sticking with me. And again, if you have any suggestions, feel free to hit my email up and tell me your thoughts and perspectives on certain things, and we're how we sort of push things and make things a little bit more impactful, for our folks across these lessons, whether it's senior seminar, whether it's Rap in Urban America or US2. Also, I will say there are some things coming up next week. Um, uh, Someone from, I think, St. Joseph Carpenters are coming to talk to our students about an internship in construction. And then there's someone coming from the U.S. Navy. This is through our ROTC with Colonel Ross and Sergeant Moody, because some students are interested in pursuing the military after high school, to come and talk to them about all the things that the military has to offer. Because at the end of the day, it's not me to tell the students, this is what you need to do, this is what you have to do, but to lay out all the options ahead of them, before them, so they can make the best decision that's best for them in their certain situations. And there's situations that they're going through that I might not be apprised of, but they know. So the fact they have some options and understand the pros and cons of each, they can make the best decisions for themselves right now, is what's important. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. So thank you, everybody, for your support. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll take care. And hopefully next time we see each other, we'll be able to share some good news about our football team, just like we're sharing some good news about our classroom. So take care, folks. Have a good day. And